What's up, everybody? How y'all doing today? Well, it's another sunny day in Portland. I decided to make this video because I was doing a little bit of research this morning, and the idea, are you left or right-brained, came to mind. And something told me that it's more complicated than left or right-brained, but I heard somebody say that it was a myth that creative people were more right-brained and analytical people are more left-brained. And I figured that was probably true, that it probably was a myth. So I looked into it a little bit, and sure enough, neuroscience basically says that it's a complete bunk. You know, it's one of those myths that has endured through history, and nobody really asks why. So I thought I would dig a little bit into it and see why, and now I'm conveying that information to you. First off, it's the idea that creative people use more of their right brain, analytical people use more of their left brain. They've actually done studies and found in certain cases that it seems like, here's the thing, language tends to come more from the left side of the brain. The language centers are in the left side of the brain. However, there are centers in the right side of the brain that have to do with processing language, how we give it emphasis, and how we convey our words. So it really takes both sides. The reason why the myth endured is because in the 1800s, people who had damage to one side of their brain or other tended to show certain traits, and people made the assumption that this meant that the brain must have certain centers, dedicated centers on each side of the brain for certain types of thinking and ways of thinking, and being related to personality types. Then in the 1960s, they did some more tests with people who were in had very extreme cases of epilepsy. And they would separate the hemispheres of the brain by cutting down the cortex. And then after doing, various tests with these subjects, they found that it appeared that creativity came from the right side of the brain, that creative people were more right-brained. Recently, over the last couple of years, they did a test with 1,000 subjects who volunteered to have tests done on their brain during these, various trials to see, is this true? And found out that no, it's not. In fact, some of them have even shown the opposite, that sometimes language seems to come more from the right side in certain cases, depending on how the language is being used. And they found that it seems, according to some other tests, that the right brain has to deal with reason, and reason would seem to go against creativity, but really does it? I guess the point that what I've learned here is that the entire brain is obviously in use for all the action that we take. Not the entirety at once, but there's no particular side of the brain that's associated with any particular action. Because that would be inefficient in natural standards to have only one side active when the whole of it can be active. It also goes back to this myth that people are still perpetuating, that we only use 10% of our brains. I remember about a year ago I made a comment on a video saying it was one of those ones that was saying this is why we use our whole brain. And I left a comment on there, and I still get responses on that comment every now and again by a person saying, no, you're wrong, we do use 10% of our brain and that's it. And because otherwise, why would we have this problem? Why would we have this problem? In other words, people are using fallacies to explain and justify why things must be true. So we're told we only use 10%, and then we want to believe it. We're told we're left and right-brained, so we want to believe it. But it's not a matter of what we believe, it's a matter of what's true. So some of this right and left brain action does have some bearing in truth, obviously, because the way that creativity and language centers are handled. But just so people know that, because there are a lot of courses and spiritual websites and things that you can, apps and stuff for your phone that help you, become more right-brained. And from what I've attained, it's not a bad thing, because if you want to use the right brain as the symbol for the value brain or the integrated brain, then who cares what you call it? If you want to call it the right and left brain, go ahead. But what that really means is that it's the good and not the good and bad. I guess it would be the negative and positive. It's a polarity in how you view the world. So when you develop integrity and you start to see things more positive, then what you're doing is you're carrying that torch of wisdom on to share with other people that things are great, and this becomes, if you will, the right brain. The brain that allows you to flourish and function to your best. So I'm constantly working on what I might call my right brain, but I guess it's just not literally a right brain. So, yeah, there are a lot of fallacies out there to explain things like the 10%, why we only use 10% of our brain, when in fact we use all of it just at different times. It would be inefficient for nature to just shut down 90% of our brain, but they're using that by showing that in any one time we're only using a certain amount of our thoughts for action. When you're really immersed in thought, you're using a lot more calories. Your brain takes, like, I think 20% of your total calories, and that's a lot for such a small organ. But thinking takes a lot of energy. People don't realize that. So I guess in a way, we learn to control our energy. We learn to control our language, how we handle ourselves, and that's living right brain, I guess. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the day. So I'll keep on keeping on. And you guys all keep carrying the torch.